Thanks everyone for joining this session. Thanks to ICT Ticino for hosting us today. So we are Rémi Pactat and Alexandre Girardi, manager and consultant in cybersecurity for Wavestone. We are usually helping our customers in their cybersecurity transformation program or cybersecurity risk analysis, and we are here today to share with you our cybersecurity startups radar for Switzerland. So on this slide, you see that we are maintaining several cybersecurity benchmark and market reports, and today we are presenting to you our startup radar. So before anything, we wanted to make clear that Wavestone is a vendor agnostic company, meaning that we have no technological partnership with any of the company we will discuss about today. We are vendor agnostic, however, as a core value, we seek to support the innovation in the market. So this is why we conduct these market studies to put the light on Swiss startups. Our offices in London, New York, Hong Kong are building cybersecurity radars too to present their local startups. So please browse our Wavestone website to find out about the startups in other countries. But today the focus will be around Switzerland. So before actually entering into the radar description, we'll discuss a bit about the methodology we followed. So we built this radar in 3 steps. First of all, we started by an exhaustive listing of all Swiss cybersecurity startups using online public annuaries and referentials, like startup.ch, Crunchbase, and the EPFL, ETHZ, YPark website. Second step was to evaluate all those startups to ensure they meet our 4 criteria that you see on this slide. The fact to have their headquarters in Switzerland was obviously an important criteria for this Swiss radar. The fact to have less than 35 employees. The company must have been created in 2012 or after. And the company must be offering an actual product, either a software or an hardware product. But the important point here is that we have excluded from the radar companies that are only proposing services. We are really willing to focus on innovations and to share with you product, software, hardware products answering new cybersecurity threats. So as a result of this analysis, we ended up with a list of 48 startups. We map them based on the cyber domain they are contributing to, and so we'll start with identity and access management, continue with cloud security, etc. So let's start with the actual startups presentation. Before this, maybe we will just present the template, how the slideware work. So at the center of the slide, we position the risks that our customers are dealing with today and that some of the startups are trying to mitigate. So around this risk, we present the logo of the startups contributing to mitigate this risk. For each startup, the first line is what the product does to mitigate it, meaning the actual feature. And just below, we pinpoint 2 technical features, which are the actual innovations that we want to highlight here to you today. So the idea for this session is for you to identify one or several products and companies that could help your organization in mitigating cybersecurity risk. If you find one, please contact us after the presentation, and we can help liaising you with those companies and start and engage a discussion to learn more about those products. Okay, so we'll start with Alexi presenting to you identity and access management startups.
Yes, so let's start with a set of 2 slides gathering startups contributing into identity and access management domain. So today more and more transactions are carried out on the internet, and more companies become more digital. This company reduce their presence, physical presence. One example is like a banking sector. So more and more banks are closing physical agencies, are present on the internet. But a major risk with this digitalization is how to ensure the identification of the customer during the onboarding process. So one solution that appeared is the facial recognitions, but a risk here is that how to ensure that the machine cannot be fooled, for example, hanging a photo in front of the camera or things like that. So to address this risk, OneVisage proposed a solution of 3D facial recognitions. So the face is scanned in 3D, and so it avoids the risk of hanging a photo or wearing a face mask. Another solution is come from PXL Visions, which recognize some emotions on faces. Aside of this solution, Fidentity proposed a complete KYC platform, so Know Your Customer platform, by adding some false document recognition empowered by artificial intelligence. Aside of facial recognitions, Futurary proposed another approach, which is based off the sound of the customer, so the environment sound around the customer. So the solution will analyze the sound all around the customer from two sources, like cell phone and computer, in order to ensure that the two devices are on the same place and to ensure that the customer is well identified. The privacy is a major issue today because we generate more and more data, and those facial recognition solutions can be dangerous for privacy, because with facial data we can infer and derive more and more information about you. So another solutions which provide a privacy enforced solution is the Venus networks. So the analysis of the Venus networks to identify people, and that's this solution that is used by Ventry and his CEO. So the goal of Ventry is to help people intervening into a human crisis zone in order to identify population, for example, to bring children to parents after a crisis. And so Ventry use the recognition of Venus network and ensure that this data still remain private and no more information is derived from this Venus networks. Another problem with identity and access management, once a people is granted to a data, how to ensure these people are accessing only to the resource that they are the right to access. And for this, Access Informer provide a solution into review the access rights. So Access Informer gather rights from many different platforms like AD, SailPoint, or application, and provide a dashboard view of all access rights. And after that, once a people is connected, so more and more companies are using SSO, single sign-on solutions, but how to ensure it's a jackpot for an attacker, because once an employee is connected to the system, no more login are required to access to all the resources. And that's why Next Day Vision provide what they called contextual login. So the behavior of the user is analyzed, and if an action derives from his normal behavior, a new login is requested in order to protect the access of these resources. So I will now let the floor to Rémi for cloud security topic.
Yeah, and we'll start with one of the new challenge in terms of cloud security, which is related to big data. So today our customers have all developed big data project at their organization level, and the new trend is to try to think about use cases across organization in the same industry. So typically in the banking industry, it could be relevant to try to gather all transactional data to be better at actually detecting fraud activities and illegitimate transactions. Another use case where big data across organization is relevant could be in the medical sector, where different hospitals could gather their medical data all together, and maybe they will get a better visibility with their data analytics on the actual effects of a given medication on a disease. So there are several big data use cases where it makes sense to gather data across organization, and the security challenge here is to run data analytics on those company datasets without revealing the actual data to the contributing parties. So this is what secret computing or confidential computing is about. So on this slide, you see several startups who are trying to deal with this. Decentric and Infer propose two different technical approaches to secret computing. Decentric is using Intel technology embedded in Intel CPU, which actually creates like secure enclave at the CPU level. So the contributing party are pushing their data, like medical data or banking transactional data, on those secured enclaves, so typically in the cloud, which will have been activated with this technology. The data is encrypted until it reaches the CPU. Data analytics algorithms are running there inside the secured enclave, and only the result of the calculation is going out of the CPU to the contributing parties. So this is one technology, and as you see, it's really linked to the fact to have this Intel technology activated in the cloud you are selecting. Another offer is or approach is the one proposed by Infer. Typically in use at JP Morgan today, and it's based on mathematical concept called secure multi-party computation. So this is really a concept where the calculation for the data analytics itself is multi-threaded in several parts on the different participating parties. So everyone receives a small bit of the data and is actually responsible to do part of the calculation. But on its own, this little bit of calculation and data doesn't reveal anything critical to the organization. So everyone is doing some kind of micro calculation, pushing back the results to the central Infer server with, from the micro results, extrapolating the overall result of the data analytic calculation. Another mathematical concept Infer is dealing with is fully homomorphic encryption, which are some type of encryption and calculations that can take place when the data is actually encrypted. So you see different type of concepts so that several organizations bring their data together to do data analytics across industry. Medco proposes the same type of solution as Infer, so based on mathematical concept, but they dedicate their product to the medical industry and the medical data sharing use case. So of cloud security protection, we have identified the Centraia offer as well. So Centraia is a cloud access security broker type product which allows you to subscribe to a software as a service product like ServiceNow or Microsoft Dynamics. Yet ensuring that the data confidentiality via a centralized encryption module hosted in your data center or in Centraia Cloud. They create digital keys dedicated to each of their customers and providing you with the assurance that only you can read the actual data that you are hosting in ServiceNow or in Microsoft Dynamics or other platforms. When we work on opportunity studies for cloud migration with our customers, there is always a question of trust, and this type of cloud access security broker solution is solving part of the problem by making impossible the access to the actual data by your cloud service provider engineers. Okay, so let's make a small break here in the listing of the startups to provide you with some global findings on Switzerland startup ecosystem.
Yes, so not surprisingly, most of the startups, around a half of our panel, come from the canton of Zurich and Vaud. So the presence of the incubator of EPFL and ETHZ, the two biggest schools in Switzerland, is a cause factor for this. And in addition, the state of Vaud is pursuing a policy in order to attract young companies in the canton. So with in particular its Innovo initiative. So this initiative helps to activate financial support and give access to a network of coach to accompany startups. So ETHZ have also a program which is called ETHZ Spin-off. So it's a company that exploit a technology, a software, and so on that are issued from research research from the ETHZ. So in order to access to this ATHJ spin-off program, you have to, one of the founder of the startup have to be in ATHJ as a professor or a student. So geographically, all of our startups are located in the arc between Geneva and Zurich. So the most densely populated axis in Switzerland. In terms of parts, there are half of startup in German-speaking and a half of startup in French-speaking part. So in the French-speaking part, most of the startups are located around Lake Geneva, mostly in Lausanne and Geneva. And in German part of Switzerland, most of the startups are in Zurich and a small part in Bern. So one thing important to mention here, there is no Italian-speaking, there is no startup coming from Italian-speaking part of Switzerland. So maybe the absence of a school in Ticino, or maybe the geographic distance can be a factor to explain that. Let's move now on fundraising of our startup. So there is a good level of fundraising of our startup. So in our benchmark, the fundraising of companies is around 50 million francs. And no less than 10 startups have raised more than 1 million francs. But a significant number of startups in our benchmark are not using fundraising for now. So they use their own funds. So one interesting thing is to mention is that most of our startups are financing their proof of concept by the client. So the client pay for a proof of concept, and so it demonstrates the confidence of major groups in a small company in Switzerland. And so, in order to talk quickly about fundraising, so fundraising for a startup is organized in cycles. So which is called seed, from its numbered with letter like seed A to seed Z, and each of this cycle of fundraising corresponds to the maturity level of the startup. So for example, the first round is to make the business more scalable and to have some fun to startups and so on. So which cycle is linked to the growth of the startup. For example, seed C is to gain more markets and, for example, to internationalize the company.
Thanks, Alexi. So let's go back to the actual startup listing and description with this slide, a compilation of products related to network and internet security. So on the top side of the slide, you will find two solutions based on one new network concept. Anapaya first. It's a promising company developing industrial-grade products based on Cyan technology. So this technology is developed in Zurich at ETH. And what Anapaya does is that they develop Cyan core services and routers that your internet service providers can set up on the edge of their networks, which create a Cyan fabric. And this fabric is really the community of internet service provider where Cyan product is activated. So if you are customers of this internet service provider, Swisscom, Sunrise and Switch are already activated in Switzerland. You can create isolated domains on internet to connect you to your peers in an authentified, resilient and confidential way. So here the idea is really to replace the need for private networks using internet access points, which are already in place in your organization, probably, surely, yet providing you with secured interconnection with your peers. They are right now leading very promising projects, particularly in the banking industry in Switzerland, so you can check their website for more details about this. CL, so on the right side of the slide, proposes a real innovation tool by making your information system a moving target. Their solution is based on software-defined network, but with an interesting twist in it. Their software-defined network module will readdress your IT components for each new transaction. So they embed in their solution components authentication in a zero trust way and encryption at the network level. So all those mechanisms makes your organization very difficult to reach actually by an external malicious actor, and it reduces your attack surface. On the bottom side of the slide, so still in the internet security side of the industry, you can see 4 logos proposing internet browsing and email security solutions. The concept of CyberQ is to address cybersecurity attacks before the actual click of your information system users on a malicious link in their mailbox, in a document, everywhere. So it will visually make more obvious the fact that the URL looks like a phishing URL, a malicious one. XorLab and Verain offer solutions to protect you from phishing and spear phishing attempts thanks to machine learning algorithm for XorLab and authentication and signature modules for Verain. Okay, and the last logo here, it's NoAce. They have developed their own web browser for Apple smartphones. It includes Proton VPN, so another great Swiss product that you probably know already, and other open source module to protect your personal data privacy while browsing internet. Then, Alexis, you might talk about cyber awareness.
Yes, so raising awareness of employees, one of the most important pillar in company cybersecurity strategy, because you can buy expensive technical measures like IDS, firewalls, and so on, but it becomes useless if your employee will click on a phishing link, will leave his password on a post-it on his screen. So raising awareness of an employee is very important to company, but most of the time, all the awareness sessions like e-learnings or lectures and so on are leave like compulsory duties by employees, and so the employee will try to pass it as quickly as possible and will not retain all the important information. To address this issue, the 2 companies on the top of the slide are working on gamifications of this awareness session. So Megaverse propose a 3D game which are running as a cloud streaming platform. So the game is rendered on the Megaverse servers, and only the display is made on the employee workstation. So it's a great opportunity. So the IT department has no effort to deploy these solutions, and by using a 3D game, so the employee is more immersed in the training, and so will retain more information. And Lucy are also working on gamifications, and so to make a friendly rivalry between employees. So they provide like a leaderboard in order to see which is the best employee in the game, and so in order to make the employee to play the game and to retain more information and to be more in the game here. Another problem is for example, like using social network in order to harm other people. And that's this issue that are addressed by the 2 companies on the bottom of the slide. So privately is the aim of privately is to reduce like school harassment and things like that. So privately will read all the posts before they are posting on the social network, and so thanks artificial intelligence, they will provide some educational advice and ask for remove this post if the system thinks that this post can be harmful for other people. And on the other side, Silencio will search on all the social networks comments that can be harmful for your company, like for example negative feedback or harmful comments on your company. And so Silencio will search for all these comments and will provide you alerts on these comments.
Okay, thanks Alexis. So second and final break before sharing with you the rest of the innovative products we discovered through the study. We'll discuss about AI. So when we brainstorm about the key findings we wanted to get out of this study, one of them was to get an answer to following question. Is the usage of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity products purely marketing, or does it bring actual value in cybersecurity with like improved performance or new functionalities and features? So before giving you the answer to this question, some reminders about AI in this slide. So AI is obviously a very large family of computational sciences, ranging from machine learning to robotics or expert systems. Part of our radar, 30% of the startups are using some forms of AI, and all of them are actually using machine learning, which is really linked to statistical algorithms. One of the startups is using deep learning and symbolic AI. This is the company Deep Code, and we'll talk a bit more about it on next slide when we discuss about application security. Okay, so for machine learning to work well, you need access to very large amount of data from multiple sources, and you must ensure that the data is diverse and unbiased. So some cybersecurity domains, because of those prerequisites, are less inclined to gather these prerequisites. Threat intelligence and biometric authentication appear to be good candidates for this, and good news, most of the products with AI in it that are part of our radar are related to those domains. So already a good hint in terms of AI not only being a marketing argument. So on this slide, we see that AI is being used for shapes and sound recognition. Biometric is really around this, and several companies are using machine learning to detect sounds and forms, and it does make sense to us. Those algorithms are known to do great for those tasks. Threat intelligence is really about technical patterns detection, so same here. We think that it is a reasonable and interesting application field for AI, using massive volume of technical log you would get from your IT assets and software to identify a malicious pattern. A less obvious yet very convincing use case we identified in our radar is the use by deep code of neural networks and symbolic AI. So we will let the engineers explain to you the math and the magic behind this AI concept, but what we understood is that they are using AI to classify the changes observed on software code in public repositories. They identify the changes bringing new features and split them apart from the changes that appear to be security fixes to their software. From there, they create their own database of software vulnerabilities, which makes their application vulnerability scanner very efficient. And deep code solution is already in use in Google and Microsoft data centers already. So to answer our initial question, is it marketing or is there actual legitimate use case where AI brings performance and functionalities in the cyber industry? In our view, the Swiss company of our panel are actual legitimate use case of AI, and the same conclusion was actually reached by our colleague in our UK and Paris offices. So maybe a reminder, when you are in a pre-sales discussion with a cybersecurity vendor, just make sure that machine learning is really justified by an actual performance improvement or new offered capabilities. But this is the case with the company we analyzed through this radar. Okay, so let's switch back to the startup radar and discuss application security with Alexi.
Yes, so application flows are one of the major vector infections, so besides the human factor that we told before. So the family of application vulnerability is very vast, so like buffer overflow, string format, null pointer exceptions, and things like that. So the most widespread and observed are the web vulnerabilities, like cross-site scripting, SQL injections, and things like that. So how can I be sure that my applications doesn't leave the field open to an attacker? So without being exhaustive, we identified 3 approaches. So on the top of the slide, the 2 startups are providing solutions in order to analyze the code. So ScanMeter provide security analysis tool, so it will make a web vulnerability detection, so an external web vulnerability detection. So the the solution, the products will analyze your website and will provide you a reporting and a dashboard. So another company is Deep Code, like Rémi told before, will analyze statically your code, and so the engine is based on artificial intelligence, which analyze many GitHub repository in order to detect if this part of code adding a new feature or if this part of code can be introduced a vulnerability into your application. So this static code analysis will point out to you where some part of your code are risky or can be vulnerable to known attacks. Yes. Another approach is to say that, okay, my application can be vulnerable, but this application will run into a hardened environment, and so this vulnerability cannot be exploited. So this approach has been chosen by the Cybersecurity company. So Cybersecurity provides a hardened platform, hardware and software, in order to run safely your applications.
So on this following slide, we are showing a mix of innovations on different cybersecurity domains, so data protection, Internet of Things, and incident detection. So first, Tesseract, founded by Jean-Philippe Aumasson, a recognized expert in cryptography. He has developed with his team a solution to help Internet of Things manufacturers implement authentication and encryption in and out of their IoT ecosystem, thanks to an automated digital key management solution. So this product will help you automatically provision, rotate, and revocate your IoT digital certificate. Exeon, on the right side of the slide, developed a software, Exeon Trace, which will monitor IT networks similarly to an alarm system to detect and visualize your cyber threat. So typically it will enrich your CM detection capacities. Yet it doesn't need dedicated hardware or software agents that you would install on your network. No, it really relies on your existing logs, technical logs, exported by your firewalls and systems. So it does compete with solutions, market solutions like Vectra or Darktrace, but with a less invasive implementation. On the lower part of the slide, we find two products that are related to data privacy and regulatory requirements. So probably you know a lot of those requirements coming from GDPR and other data privacy laws in Switzerland. So you need to inventory your data assets, you need to inventory your data processing activities, implement security measures, etc. So some of the Swiss actors here forward are trying to help you with those requirements. So typically RegData, they developed a solution which based on a template defined by the application owner, for instance the owner of your customer relationship management platform, will apply protection measures per data column, so based on the user profile and its context. Typically, it can help you anonymize sensible data according to the least privilege principle. So if you want your data scientists, for instance, to access only a subset of data when they work from home, and a more complete version in your organization premises, RegData can help you minimize the effort for technical integration of those conditional access measures. It was developed first for on-premises application, but it is now ready for software as a service implementation. So you can browse their website and find out with what SaaS partners they're already working with. Priv is a second data protection product which can help your organization in the implementation of GDPR, or the Swiss data privacy law. Typically, subjects' right requirement, like the right for rectification, or the right to be forgotten, or the consent management. So their platform collects and handles the personal data of your consumer or users in a data privacy compliant way, and your various applications, your big data scientists can now concentrate on the actual processing of this data. So Priv platform is taking care of the data privacy requirements from regulations. On following slide, so we see another mix of cybersecurity domains. Appiax and Scribble help you meet regulation requirements. Appiax first, so it's a RegTech startup, and they want to help your organization stay compliant in terms of wealth management, asset management, and data protection regulations. In many organizations, multiple resources are used to comply with the same regulation, spread out across departments. So the objective of Appiac is to be the only compliance source to enable compliance by design, which refers to business processes being designed in such a way that they can only execute compliant actions. So promising product as well. Scribble offers a module to digitally sign your documents. So either by connecting directly to their website or integrating their modules, their software, via API in your applications. Helvetia and EasyJet are already using their solution. So they have two modules. One called AES is based on email or mobile phone number authentication. The second one, called Qualified Electronic Signature, QES, requires a prior authentication via video call or by personal contact. At the bottom side of the slide, we are sharing with you two other Swiss gems. You all saw tweets with deepfake videos of Trump or Obama.
President Trump is a total and complete dipshit. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would.
Quantum integrity was developed with the vocation to detect image forgery in insurance or journalism areas. They are now already working on this deepfakes video detection. So for industries where the data confidentiality need is very high, your organization might be looking for Swiss-made products. CLUSIS has developed Swiss design and made hardware security module, so HSM, for all your encryption or authentication requirements. For instance, the crypto tech company Crypto Finance proposes a solution to their end consumer based on CLUSIS hardware. And the presentation will not be complete with the 10 Swiss logo proposing cybersecurity solutions for your cryptography, data protection, and threat intelligence needs. Very disruptive solution from Synax, who aims to set up a SSO between all your internet applications. Or Global ID, who is developing a biometric authentication based on 3D Venus analysis. Because it was not possible to present all 48 products during this 1 hour talk, or 45 minutes talk actually, we are presenting a very brief description of the solutions here. But again, should you be interested in getting more details or getting linked to the startup pre-sales team or CEO, we will be happy to help organize ad hoc session with them. So please contact us. So this is now time for a very brief conclusion. We hope that through this session we contributed to increase the awareness that Switzerland is a very dynamic innovation center for cybersecurity professionals. Organizations like the Trust Valley, the EPFL Center for Digital Trust, or like the Black Alps are really increasing permanently this dynamism, and we feel that Switzerland is really a stimulating place for cybersecurity professionals. So to end up this session, I will use our Wavestone motto. Please, Swiss entrepreneurs, continue to develop those great Swiss innovations so that we can continue to unlock IT innovations with trust. So thanks.